Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, I am going to cover a couple announcements. And while I'm talking about those things, there's a mecha robot painting that I'm working on in the background, and we'll get to what that symbolizes in a little bit. But the first thing I want to announce is that I'm going to be going full-time Patreon/YouTube come July. So I recently quit my studio job. Still have a couple weeks to wrap up there, but in starting in July, I'll be working full-time on my artwork. So adding stuff to Patreon and workshops and live streaming and YouTube videos, all that good stuff. I'll be starting to do full-time. So I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to the change in lifestyle, I guess, working from home and working on as an independent artist. And hopefully with that change will also come, some more activity on social media from me, since I've been pretty silent in the last few months. And also just like some more activity on the Patreon Discord server. And yeah, just on my platforms in general. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be putting out some new videos and some new content. So with that said, I won't necessarily be posting that content in the same places I've been posting the last couple of years. So the first big change I made is I recently deleted my Instagram. So my Instagram has been nuked. It is long gone, permanently deleted. So I won't be posting there anymore, obviously. And depending on the stability of a new platform called Cara, which this robot is inspired by, I might move my whole portfolio over to there. So I don't know how long I'll keep my ArtStation around for, but all my new artwork I'll be posting on Cara for the time being. It's currently in beta, so it's got some glitches, it's got a few bugs, and sometimes it's a bit slow, but the team is working incredibly hard on it, and it seems like a super promising platform for artists. So yeah, I'm planning to move my stuff there. You should definitely check it out if you're interested. There's an amazing community behind it, and I haven't really supported any kind of project as much as I am with this one. I really believe in the platform. It's like a platform built for artists by artists, with artists' interests in mind, and it's going to be a great place just to initiate conversation and see some authentic human-made art. So go check it out. And yeah, I guess that's kind of where this robot design is coming from. It's kind of inspired by this move to the Cara platform. So if you go over there, you'll see the ups and downs of what's going on. The developers are super transparent with what's happening. So I designed this kind of robot, this Cara bot, that is kind of representative of the platform and how hard they're fighting for what they believe. So it's carrying a giant coffee container on its back, which is, they have a donation platform, which is like buy me a coffee. So I'm kind of using that as the power source for this robot. And then they have a few different technologies, one of which is integrating the glaze technology to the platform, or making it more accessible for artists to glaze their artworks before putting them online. And that technology basically protects artwork from it being easily scraped, and it makes it harder basically for AI. I don't know how to say, but like it makes it harder for like AI to train itself based on glazed artwork. So it adds a level of protection, and that's what the shield is. So the shield is like the glazed shield. You'll see in a bit. I play around with some VFX and do some cool stuff for that. So, and yeah, finally, I mean, the main weapon is the stylus. So back to humans generating art. I think it's been a long time symbol of creation. You know, we saw a lot of using the stylus as your weapon in ArtStation competitions a while back. But you know, the greatest weapon that any artist has is their medium. So in my case, it's a pen and tablet. So that's my weapon of choice for this robot. And yeah, just getting into a little bit of what I'm actually doing for this robot. So I already had the line art done. So I worked through the design. I worked through a few designs really quickly. I did all of this in one sitting basically. And now I'm going through and shading the whole thing. So you can see that I started with a kind of a global shadow. So a really light sort of global shadow just to indicate where the light source is coming from. And now I'm kind of tackling the secondary forms. So zooming in a little bit and trying to tackle, you know, how the different form changes on every element, and trying to build that three-dimensionality. So started kind of from the focal point, which is obviously the head, and then working down the body. I kind of work like a printer sometimes, because I'm pretty good at visualizing where the light source is coming from. So I kind of just work my way down and try to cover everything an equal amount. So trying not to over render some places and under render others. I try to keep the rendering consistent across the board. And this is kind of just like an initial modeling of the form. Later, when I add on my flats and do some more rendering with color, I'll kind of layer on top of that initial rendering with some paint over sort of rendering. I also chose to mask out the shield. So basically the whole character has one mask, then the shield frame has a mask, and the inside of the shield has a mask because it'll have some transparency. And it's just easier for me to organize my layers that way. You'll see I kind of reorganize it in a little bit when I add in my flats, just to kind of simplify how I do the transparency and with the VFX on the shield. But you know, initially it's good to just break up your illustration, especially if it's a more complex illustration with multiple planes, into different layers. So you might mask like the foreground elements on one layer, and then mask the midground elements and the background elements separately, just to create that separation. Because when it comes time for rendering, sometimes you really want those masks just to get a really clean line, a really clean separation between elements. And for that same reason here, I'm doing flats with like a non-rasterized pen or lasso tool, so that I can get really clean selections and get those clean borders between different materials and between different elements. So the colors I decided to go with are obviously the Cara colors, so black and white so far. I don't know if they might do a rebrand in the future or something, and then this might not this might not be accurate at all. But for now, that's the site colors. My usual presentation is going to be on a white background, so I need to be careful not to go too dark with the black. So with the layers set to hard light, you can see that the darkest colors I'm choosing are kind of in the 80 to 90% gray range, and that'll give me just enough room in my shadows to still show form. So if I go any darker than that, then the darkest parts of my shadow go to black, and it kind of messes up. It burns the deepest shadows a bit too much. And now just masking different materials. So I want basically, so I'm doing sort of a two-tone color scheme with an accent color. So my two tones are basically a light color, which is going to be kind of really light aluminum, or like a light polished metal, and that's going to be my white color basically. And then my black color is going to be like most of the armor, so there's going to be sort of almost like a powder coated metal or some sort of painted metal, and then the accent color is going to be the shield, which is all VFX. But within that two-tone color palette, I want a little bit, I still want some more material differentiation. So in the darks, I choose a couple colors like this dark gray, or a couple dark grays, just to kind of separate some panels out. And then within the light, I have the aluminum and the glass, and that kind of separates out, like they fall kind of in the same category of value, so they group together basically. And so from far, you kind of get that graphic separation between, the arm, the legs, the torso, and that like that big container on the back. And so you get a clear split in the character. So here I kind of set up my layers for rendering. So I have a kind of a post-process layer on top, which is just my regular noise layer. And then I'm gonna shuffle around my layers here just so I can start to render this, like the VFX for this shield. So at this point, I don't really know how I'm gonna render the VFX for this shield. I know that the glaze technology to protect images, it kind of has this like wavy noise effect to it, where it covers the whole image in this sort of wavy noise with a lot of different colors in it, and it's kind of like a rendered effect. So I'm kind of trying to imitate that, and instead of painting the whole thing, which I quickly realized would take me ages, I'm kind of playing around with the filter gallery and just trying to see what different filters can give me in terms of waviness and that kind of like twirly effect. And you'll see I'm messing around with a whole bunch of different things, but I end up actually blurring my image so that the filter gallery works a bit better, and then I found this cool chrome effect where that gives me some nice twirls. And now I'm adding a gradient map so that the black and white values, I can assign different colors to the different values and give that sort of like iridescent, chromy, wavy, almost like tinfoil sort of effect. And now I duplicate it, I add a bit of chromatic aberration. I'm basically throwing all the different, everything I know in terms of creating VFX at this shield. So also playing with blend modes and seeing what kind of blends the best. It's kind of like an energy shield from Halo, but with my own little twist to it. So here I want to show a little bit more transparency in the center. And since it's going to be on a white background, I want to make sure that shield is still visible, because on some blend modes it's just going to disappear on the white background. So I actually set the shield on normal on one layer and then use a layer mask in the center so that the normal layer only appears around the edges. So it kind of gives the illusion that the shield's still there, even when you can kind of see through it in the center. You can see the arms. So now we are into rendering. So you can see I'm using the flat layers as a mask so that I can only paint on certain materials. So right now I'm adding sort of a global kind of sky highlight, sort of in those blue tones, and that'll just give a bit more form to the black metal, since the metal normally has sort of a colored reflection, but this gives it sort of an iridescent quality to it. And now I'm adding a little bit of warm light, so we get that like warm against cool, and that's going to be sort of a bounce light from the ground. And I'll warn you in advance that this completely competes against what I need to light this as later, because I realize that the shield is going to be emitting a quite intense blue light, so that blue light's going to sort of compete with the bounce light. So now I'm rendering some coffee. I got some references of like a French press. So a French press has like a glass container in which you can see the coffee. So kind of using that just as a baseline. I rework it a bit later to add some more swirls, but just to get like a good foundation down, start to paint that, and you can see again I'm using a mask, and then painting just using a normal layer on top. And then for glass, you always want to start painting what's behind the glass, and then you add really sharp highlights on top, and that kind of gives the illusion of transparency, but also glossiness to the glass. So that whole container is kind of swishing and swooshing with good old coffee. And then, the idea is that this tube kind of like injects the coffee into the robot, connects into different parts of the body, whether it be the spine or the muscles or the mechanisms in the back. Basically, it's the robot's gasoline. It's like the fuel. And now just for the highlights, I add a color dodge layer. I set the color dodge layer to black, fill the whole layer with black, and then I layer lock it using that little grid icon right below the layer styles. So when I click on that, it basically locks the transparency of the layer, and you can see that my foreground color is white, or like a light color, and I'm using that to paint my highlights, and that creates really nice metallic highlights in Photoshop, the way the color dodge blends down to the layers below. So it really kind of it dodges the color quite intensely, blasts out the highlights, which gives that nice metallic effect. And here I'm considering the emitted light from the shield, so adding a bit of blue sort of emitted light, kind of playing around with different temperatures of blue. So using some greener blues and some more purple blues, just to create some variety, since the shield isn't like a unified color. Adding a bit of highlights to the metal. This is where I find the illustrations always really start to come together, because I tend to go a little bit too dark with all my with my shading and the flats and stuff, so that I can really make the highlights pop at this stage. Because if everything is too light, then I can't actually bring highlights back. It's like you can't add white to white. So I'm working on a bit of a darker foundation and making those forms pop with highlights. Here messing around a bit with the VFX, seeing if a different color works. I just want this to kind of to look cool, and semi-believable. So I need to still keep it within the style of the illustration. So I decide that the texture is like too big, or it was too small and noisy, so I kind of scaled it up to make it bigger and kind of reduces the noise. And now I'm kind of in the final stage of rendering. So I create a normal layer on top of everything, and I just paint the good old-fashioned way. Nothing fancy, just kind of adding details and pushing and pulling forms, adding value, removing value. So I want the metallics to be more metallic, which means more contrast. So I'm adding some darkness to the core shadows, some ambient occlusion, popping out some edges so that they feel kind of sharp, adding a bit of texture. This is like little metal scratches and stuff. And just adding a little bit of detail in places where I think I could draw more attention to. And it's kind of like balancing the illustration. So if you want to draw the eye to a certain area, you need to add more contrast and more detail. And if you want to, take the eye away from, like, distract from an area, then you kind of want to knock it back. So you can either lower the contrast by mudding up the colors, or just darken it and kind of make it recede into the background. So now I'm masking out the Cara logo. So this was the plan all along. So the sphere head is sort of the Cara head, or the Cara logo. And now I'm just kind of warping that into place. I could have just painted it into place, but it's made my life difficult. And now adjusting the placement a little bit, and this is going to be a mask. So I'm selecting the layer by control clicking the layer, and then I lightened the color layer and kind of added some metallics effects to it so that it matches the rest of the aluminum. And now I'm kind of working over it with some line art, just kind of integrating it into the whole picture. So here, just some finishing touches, some extra trim, some more little panel lines, panel cuts, little bolt holes, and hardware. So just making it feel a bit more functional. And then adding a couple of decals. So Cara's in beta right now, so I added a little beta tag and trying to figure out where the best place to put it is. So decided on top of the sternum. Just simplified that down. And now, just to make sure that people understand that it's coffee, I did a little fresh brew decal. And then knock it back just so that it's like a secondary element, so there's not too much contrast. And yeah, and then just adjusting this since the Cara logo has a white line under the C. So that is going to be about it for this illustration. Just some final touches. But yeah, so overall this was a super fun illustration. Just kind of came out on a whim. I'm really looking forward to see all the amazing artwork that people go and post on that website, and I hope that the developers continue receiving a lot of support and funding, since it costs a lot of money to run servers and stuff on a new platform like this. And hopefully they fix all the bugs, and this hopefully this can become like the next ArtStation, or the next big art platform. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao, ciao.